Hey, this is Joel Duff. Welcome back to the channel. The algorithm has brought you to the next episode of This Week in Creationism. Episode 77. This is where I take a look at recent events in the world of young earth creationism. What do we have today? I want to talk about leadership and organizational structure at Answers in Genesis, or the lack of clarity about the organizational structure at Answers in Genesis. We'll talk about and compare that to, say, Logos Research Associates, a group that I rarely talk about in young earth creationism. Of course, new numbers for the Ark Encounter attendance are out. Is the decline continuing? Yes, it certainly is. Talk just briefly about that, show you those numbers. And we got a few other things, tidbits lined up for This Week in Creationism. Stick around, it's coming up next. So before we get started, I'm going to do a little self-promotion in case you missed the last episode of This Month in Creationism. I called it This Month in Creationism because I hadn't done one in a while. I talked about Ken Ham being lonely, about the rest of his generation. Let's just say many of them aren't around anymore, and he's kind of feeling it, and he's wondering where the next generation is coming from. And you had a number of really interesting comments to that particular video. And so I made you a video, in case you missed it, responding to those comments, in which I take some of your ideas and I kind of riff on those. It was a fun one. And then I picked up on something else I mentioned in This Month in Creationism, and that is I talked about the New Creationist and a new peer-reviewed journal they've begun, New Creation Studies. And I take a look at really one of the first articles in that particular issue 1, volume 1. The first article is about the state of creationism. And it's a very introspective, fascinating article written by Hans Mataweme from Covenant College, examining his experience with the nature of young earth creationism and the challenges that it faces, the headwinds that it faces, both from outside, but more importantly, from inside. And I spent a good amount of time, as you can see there, over an hour, basically going through that article and adding my own commentary on it, because I have talked a lot about what I call the new creationist, or a new brand of creationism, which is sort of beginning to take form now over the last couple of years as a branch of young earth creationism. All right, so those are some goodies to check out. Let's just get right to the monthly attendance values before we start talking about Answers in Genesis again. The Ark Encounter. Before I start, I want to just say thanks again to my source for this information, who does the public records request. And he gets numbers from the county that allow him to approximate the attendance at the Ark Encounter. And we noted a couple months ago a pretty significant decline back there in May. And then it followed through June, and then July, being anywhere from 10 to 15% down from last year, and on average 30% below the all-time highs back in 2019 and sometimes in 2017. And that trend continues in August. So here are the August numbers: 73,000 visitors. That would be paid adult visitors to the Ark Encounter. That's down from 82,000, and you can see it was pretty steady: 82, 79, 83, 83. But that's down from before the pandemic, when it was 104 and all the way up to 106,000. So if you go 104, 106,000 down to 73, that's more than a 30% drop in attendance. Now, as I noted in my last episode, that percent is maybe made up for in revenues. The revenue might actually be down because the cost of attending, the cost of going to the Ark Encounter is up about 30% as well. The economy is probably touching the typical audience that they're trying to attract to the Ark Encounter. And so I think that is probably the main thing. I think there's some other, I got a lot to talk about in this week in creationism, so I'll just leave it here. I'm sure we'll come back to these attendance numbers in the next month. And as this year rounds out, and I expect it's going to continue now, I mean, it's enough of a trend that it should be a worrying trend for Answers in Genesis. Creation.com from Creation Ministries International. couple interesting articles out of there. Rob Carter, their resident geneticist, has once again dipped his toes into the whole question about the origins of Adam and Eve and how long ago they lived, and with respect to using genetics to estimate that. And he looks at mitochondrial DNA in this particular article. I'll just give you the TLDR. It's basically a repeat of everything else he said. I didn't see anything terribly novel in here. It's the same kind of arguments, and we could make the same arguments against what he said here. I might do a critiquing creationism episode in which we take a brief look through this article and kind of compare it to previous ones to really answer the question, why publish this particular article now? Here's the Institute for Creation Research front page from yesterday. Honestly, check it for the last 5 days. It hasn't really changed. They're only updating their front page of their website with new material, maybe every 3 days. Sometimes it feels like it's a little bit longer than that. And as you can see, there's really nothing here that interests me. I don't know, maybe you're interested in any of these and catch your fancy. Not me. Institute for Creation Research has been incredibly boring. I've complained about it before. I almost don't even go there to even see what they're talking about because there's nothing stimulating here. I know some of you are saying like, well, is there anything stimulating in any of these sites? I actually do find some of the articles very, very interesting and I'm not going to say challenging. I'm going to say that they always get me thinking about something and I end up like, wow, I hadn't thought about that. I need to actually do a little research in order to answer the questions that they're raising. And that causes me to do some research. And then I love doing that because then I get to learn new things about the world. The problem with ICR is I come here and I'm like, all right, you're not really even raising any interesting questions. So I don't get to do any interesting research to try to respond to it. I haven't done a critiquing creationism reaction to anything on ICR, and I don't know. I can't even remember the last time I did. Will I ever do another one? I don't know. But please, ICR, give me something to work with here. Let's move to Answers in Genesis. So again, it's really nothing very interesting at the Answers in Genesis website. I'm interested in big picture stuff happening in creationism. Don't remember exactly what it is that stimulated me to think about this. But nonetheless, I kind of wondered, what is the current structure of their organization? I mean, Ken Ham, we've been talking about how, as I said, Ken Ham is really lonely. He's talking about his successor. What's the next generation going to be of leaders? He's bemoaning the fact that most of his leader friends are literally dead. And then we talked about how Martin Iles was going to be a successor and now longer it is. And we've gone another week now with no word, no hint that they're any closer to finding a successor to Ken Ham. But then I know, that's actually what got me thinking. I was thinking, well, who else is at Answers in Genesis? Like, who's actually running the operations there? Ken Ham's not running the day-to-day operations of Answers in Genesis. I mean, he is the CEO. He just writes on his blog and talks and is the front-facing face of the organization. But he's not in the nuts and bolts daily operation stuff. Who's really running the show? Like, keeping the doors open and really making decisions about, how much they're going to charge for the Ark Encounter, see if they can get more people to come. And so I thought, well, I'll go look at their organizational structure. I'll see who's there now and who is the CFO and so forth. Just looking from their public, facing here's who we are. You can't figure any of that out anymore. They used to have a lot more information about who they are. So here's the front page. Your categories are answers, store, events, videos. I had to search for a long time to find any information about the people at Answers in Genesis, like who are their employees and what types of things do they do? They're writing articles and I can see that, but I don't know. Are those full-time employees? Are those paid employees? Are those people that write articles outside that are just, paid as gigs, So anyway, I'm looking around. I go down to the bottom of their website. By the way, I'm not on their website scrolling and looking at it because I'm trying to obey their acceptable use policy, which is fairly strict. So whoever it is that is assigned to watch my videos at Answers in Genesis, just letting you know that I'm aware of that. Okay, so then I go down to the bottom here. I'm like, okay, I want to find out about the people. Where am I going to find that? All right, there's About Us. And guess what? If I clicked on About Us, you know what I'd find out about? Ken Ham. Big picture of Ken Ham, our founder, of his history of Answers in Genesis, all about Ken Ham and his history and what he's done. No one else is mentioned there. That's About Us. It's about, should just say about Ken Ham. Right? It's amazing. It's only about Ken Ham. That's why it's called Ken Ham Ministries by many of us outside of Answers in Genesis. Right? It's the reason Answers in Genesis split many years ago to form Creation Ministries International, because those who left called it Ken Ham Ministries. Right? So they haven't gotten away from that since then. Well, anyway, if you search around, so About Us doesn't work. You go over to Events. And when you go over to Events, that's where you get, I'm ahead of myself. Another curious thing I stumbled upon before I get to the people. I'm still looking for like who's in charge. And I decide, hey, I'm going to ask the AIG AI chatbot. So there behind me is Curious About the Bible. Let's chat. That is the AI trained chatbot for their website. And I asked the question, who is runs the day-to-day operations, or who is second in command at Answers in Genesis today? It came back with like, hey, we have a panel of people that run Answers in Genesis, without mentioning any names, under the direction of Ken Ham, and then it gave me a link that I can find out more. All right, so which is kind of what I was looking for. Here, go to this website to find out more. And it took me to a 2021 document, which I didn't realize at first. It's dated 2021. I just figured this was the statement of faith that's there at Answers in Genesis now. So I'm reading through this document, and I've forgotten how interesting this is. I have a challenge for you in regards to our updated, detailed statement of faith. Here's the challenge. Consider getting a copy of your churches, colleges, or other organizational statement of faith. Then using AIGs, discuss with them, with the leadership at these places. Basically, hey, take their statement of faith, take ours, line it up, find the differences, and then basically go in and demand to be told why their, statement of faith doesn't line up with Answers in Genesis. Right? Because Answers in Genesis is the standard by which we should all be measured. The Bible presumably, but Answers in Genesis maybe more so. Now, I have to warn you, in some instances, you may experience some hostility, particularly concerning details about Genesis, gender, marriage, so forth. I believe this exercise will really help some churches and institutions for the future. If they conform to us, yes, they will be helped. All right, but that's not what really, really, really caught my attention. I had forgotten about this document. I remember when it came out. Creation Museum, Ark Encounter, years ago, we set up an editorial review board, and this is the kind of thing I was looking for, headed by Georgia Purdom. That's their geneticist, who is really no longer a geneticist and does special operations, basically there, oversees some ministries. And that editorial board reviews all articles, books, and other materials produced and distributed by AIG to ensure there's no mission drift, right? Everything is written by everybody who might show up on our website or any of our materials. It's got to go through this editorial review board to make sure it meets all that statement of faith, which is a very detailed document. Recently, in an effort to remain consistent and steadfast in our purpose, I authorized the Answers in Genesis Oversight Committee, or AIG Oversight Council. It includes 9 of our staff, including some of our younger visionaries. I'd love to know who those younger visionaries are, but of course, no mention of who they are. But here's the kicker, and is headed by Bodie Hodge, his son-in-law. For those of you who are new, the reason I'm pausing there is because Bodie Hodge, he's not at Answers in Genesis anymore. When Martin Iles came in, Bodie Hodge shown the door, I'm not sure who's shown the door, he left. Let's just say that. And he started his own ministry. And he was essentially second in charge at Answers in Genesis. And this is the reason I was thinking about this. I was thinking, like, who replaced Bodie Hodge? Because he was basically he was there on campus, right, overseeing operations on a daily basis, making sure the place is running. And then all of a sudden, he's gone, and his name is wiped from the. He's just completely wiped off the Answers in Genesis website. His articles, unless he was a co-author with something in a few books, everything else is gone. His articles, mention of him, except here you have a mention of him, which is why it has really stuck out to me. Because like I've searched the Answers in Genesis website through their search vehicle for him to see where he's mentioned. And I didn't find this before. All right. But interestingly, the AIG AI chatbot, which apparently has just been trained on like all their materials and has probably climbed through all of their web pages, even ones you can't see. These are like hidden. These are older hidden web pages that no longer are linked, except the chatbot could see it. AI could see those pages. And so it was able to direct me to this. Maybe I shouldn't be pointing this out because they'll probably fix this now because this is how I find out a lot of other stuff about Answers in Genesis. Is because I ask the AI chatbot and it tells me stuff and points me to pages that you can't find otherwise. All right. So I said earlier that whoever's assigned to watching my videos at Answers in Genesis to know what Dr. Duff is saying about Answers in Genesis, it's your lucky day. I've just given you a big, huge tip about what to put on that to-do list. Honestly, I'm not sure it's going to be that easy to fix. It's going to be pretty technical to get rid of that stuff and train that AI chatbot to what to ignore and what to include. But anyway, mentions Bodie Hodge here, and that made me think, wait a second, I am probably not looking at the current version, right? Because it's 2021, Bodie Hodge is mentioned here, but I had never seen him mentioned in my searches. And sure enough, I go back to the website and I just go to the link that goes to the statement of faith. And all that other stuff about the oversight board and all that, all gone. It's all gone. They stripped it down to just this statement here. Right? And then after this overarching statement about the statement of faith, then it just has the long list of here's what we believe. Now that seems to be, what I need to do is do a comparison because I copied, the 2021 version. So I have a copy of it. I need to compare that 21 version with the 25 version, but I suspect it's probably about all the same, if not identical. But interestingly, all this stuff about how we have oversight and we're vetting everything, and who is overseeing that, all gone. So from their website and their AI chatbot and all that, cannot figure out any organizational structure. All right. Now, we can figure a few things out here. Because we're told under the bios on the speaker page. That's the only place where you can find actual people there. And of course, no links, no email addresses. I mean, links to their articles they've written. But how to contact any of them? Nope. No public emails. By the way, search for me on the internet. You'll find my website at my workplace. And if you want to send me an email, my workplace, feel free to. I'm completely available there. All right. So what I want to do is I want to do a really quick exercise here. I got a lot of other things we want to get to, so I don't want to belabor this, but let's just scan down through all the speaker bios. And this feels like it represents all of the current active employees that are probably on the payroll. I say probably because some of them I know are retired. But they kind of want to keep the impression that, they have these folks with them because they're bigger names. But here's what I want you to note. The number of PhDs and what the PhDs do. because I've been talking about Answers in Genesis doesn't really do research, and they're moving farther and farther and farther away from sort of the creation science side of things. And I want to try to illustrate that by doing this exercise. So we have, here's a doctor right here, all right, Tim Chafee. But his PhD is in basically content management. So he's overseeing like displays and like the content that's in the museum. Danny Faulkner, he has a doctorate in a scientific field in astronomy. Danny Faulkner is, again, I don't know whether he's a full-time employee anymore. He certainly doesn't write a lot. He speaks a little bit, does a few interviews. If he's got a sweet gig, if he's a full-time employee, pulling down full pay, I'll tell you that. I like that position. But I'm having fun with this, but I have to say I actually like Danny Faulkner a lot. He's a really one of the more enjoyable people to listen to, and I have to say most of the time he writes pretty good stuff. Avery Foley, Mike Foster, there's Ken Ham. All right, so there we have 2 PhDs out of 8, and only one of them in science. Right, then we've got these 2 right here, Nathaniel Jeanson. So he is a molecular biologist. He would be their best known scientist, all right, staff scientist who really is doing science. Right. I know some people quibble with that, but I mean, he is actually trying to do research, talks about it, writes papers. He's not doing public speaking. He doesn't do a lot of other things other than just sit in his office and do his research and write books. Gabriella Haynes, she's paleontologist by training, does have a PhD in that. And so she is the one that comes on the shows and is a face of an academic PhD. I don't want to be, what can I say about Gabriella Haynes? Her area of expertise is a very, very, very thin wedge of paleontology. And I don't feel like she has a lot of expertise outside that area. And she's asked to do a lot of things way outside of her area. And so I'm giving her out on not being qualified to talk about a lot of things she talks about. Terry Mortensen, more of a historian, and he's essentially retired. So he's doesn't seem active at all in Answers Again. Again, if he's being paid full time there, then again, nice sweet gig he's got. Brian Osborne, Dr. Georgia Purdom. She has a PhD in molecular biology, genetics at Ohio State. A fair while back now, and but she hasn't done anything with that science degree really since then in terms of research. She talks about genetics, but she's totally into like the women's ministry and setting up things and she has a lot of administrative duties. So not an active scientist at all, but we'll count her as a PhD scientist. Jennifer Hall has an PhD in education. And then we're getting down near the end. Andrew Snelling, obviously PhD in geology, but he is actually retired and has moved back to Australia. And I mean, he's writing on the side and submits a few things for Answers in Genesis once in a while, but he's there as just another token PhD to look like they have PhDs at Answers in Genesis. And then that's it. All right. So that's, what do we say? Active researchers, people who are recent PhDs that are doing something that sounds sciencey. It's basically Nathaniel Jeanson. Really, that's all it is. Maybe Gabriella Haynes, she's writing articles and responding to science stuff in paleontology. So we'll give her half credit. So that's it. That really is it. I mean, Danny Faulkner is on the side too, but he's right about to go out the door as well. As Ken Ham said, he's getting really lonely around him. So what I want to do now is I want to compare this to Logos Research Associates and look at the PhDs there, which is another creation science organization, but also, and I'll just give away my main thing I want you to notice there. the lack of anybody from Answers in Genesis. They have all kinds of creation scientists from all kinds of places. Nobody from Answers in Genesis. So Answers in Genesis, all the folks I'm showing you here are in that ministry and have very little relations outside with the outside young earth creationist community. Yes, some of them are members of the Creation Research Society and go to those meetings and give talks. But this is a very tight-knit group that is doing their own thing and are not, not the friendliest of ball players. All right, I already gave away everything I wanted to say, but let's just do a quick scan through Logos Research Associates. Logos Research Associates, this is I'll call it a scientific, an academic scientific organization or society for young earth creationists. So everybody here actually needs to have an advanced degree in science to be part of this particular organization. So I just want to go to Meet Our Fellowship. So here, organizationally, what do they have, right? So we've got these board members. Now, John Baumgartner is about retired. There is one other thing I want you to notice. There is a reason why I'm going to show you the pictures. I want you to see how many old white guys there are. Again, Ken Ham's generation, right, is still dominating the active list of people involved in young earth creationism, but they're all right at that similar age. They're 50s to 70s. So you got John Baumgartner. These are the board members. John Sanford. Chris Ruppy is a young guy and up and coming speaker. I've heard him. He's a decent speaker. And then you've got all these various associates. And these cut across all the different other organizations and independent young earth creationists who are willing to be associated with each other and form this particular society. We've got Bergman, we've got Austin, we got Stephen Boyd. He is a PhD, not really in science, but theology. Brand, there's Rob Carter from Creation Ministries International. Oh, a lot of these are independent. Like, these are not associated with any particular organization, right? They're either professors at colleges or very small organizations, but not Creation Ministries International, Institute for Creation Research, or Answers in Genesis. I just said not. I'm going to show you that Answers in Genesis is the missing one here. Because we've got Rob Carter, he's Creation Ministries International. Bunch of old guys. Here's Randy Gugliuzza. He is the president of Institute for Creation Research. He's quite active there and has given several different talks at Logos Research Associates events. Russell Humphreys has been, I believe, with ICR. He would definitely be retired. Most of you aren't. I don't know all these names. Vardaman, he has been associated with Creation Ministries International. We've got John Whitmore. He's at Cedarville College, if I have that right. Yeah, it's, so you have a couple at CMI, a couple from ICR, but here, what's missing here? Answers in Genesis is 100% missing here. I just showed you they have some PhDs, all right, at Answers in Genesis. I mean, essentially, this is a collection of all the people that have PhDs that are kind of active in promoting young earth creationism, doing something, writing, researching, trying to convince people of young earth creationism that are scientists. All right. I really can't think of a lot of people that aren't here. I just realized there are a number of people aren't here. Actually, the new creationists aren't here. All right. Now there's a couple. I mean, Steve Austin. Steve Austin's here. All right. Anyway, I've just been thinking about this. I'm just thinking, just trying to get my head around how different young earth creationists associate with one another and so forth, and what the differences are, as I've been thinking about this sort of new creationist movement at the same time. All right, to end this up, I like to try to end on a lighter note a little bit, something that I'm not going to take quite as seriously, but I kind of have fun thinking about. I don't talk about Standing for Truth very much. They have Standing for Truth is a channel on YouTube, a fairly large channel, right? And they have this is a resource site for a website that they have as well. And they're kind of renowned for their terrible writing. Like their articles from the past have been incredibly hodgepodge and sort of like I don't know, sophomoric in their approach to putting together research. And so down here are some links to some older articles. Yeah, let me just open one by like say Matt Naylor, because I love his approach. So, and this actually links to his particular website, Creation and Crypto. And yeah, because creation and crypto, they go together, right? So here, March 31st, 2021. Right. And this is some of his more, I would say, fluid writing here, because a lot of his books and things that they publish have like bizarro fonts, and it's like copy pasted. Like, here we have some notes on PowerPoint slides and we copied this, we put it in here, and it's like, it doesn't flow. It looks different. It's indented differently. Now, down here, yeah, I mean, like right in the middle of this, we have links. You can learn about variation potential found in the human race, period. Here's the link to the website. Oh, look, see, well, I just said there's different fonts, and now I'm looking at it and it's like, yeah, we have a different sized font and potentially a different font. And figures, and then here's the resources, which I guess would be references. Look at this. One of the references is literally a screenshot of an article, right? So I can't click on these links here. It's just a screenshot of everything. Lundy, what you doing in here? Come on, go. I'm talking. Yeah, I probably won't even cut that out. That was my dog coming in. Because I'm during silly time here. So anyway, that's an article from the past. And here's what bothers me a little bit. This is the age we live in, and this is what we have facing us. A couple of people that run Standing for Truth, writing's not their specialty, that's for sure. Let's just say it's not one of their gifts. And so they've published a bunch of different books, which again are just stuff thrown together. And all of a sudden, lo and behold, their writing is far superior than what it was before. It's organized, has flow to it. The words are very different. If I were to do a word, study, word usage study, you'd find that it's like this is a whole different person writing these articles, right? It's like, wow, they've really changed. Of course, they didn't really change, right? This is written by ChatGPT. They are running all their previous stuff and all their notes and slides and stuff through and making response articles using ChatGPT. But the kind of hilarious part here is it's pretty much just run through ChatGPT and then just straight up published with very little editing. And what I wanted to do was, let's take a look at this one on Neanderthals. This is the one that caught my attention because he linked on Facebook. And I typically don't open this stuff, but I was intrigued because it said it was a research article. We've just published a research article not really in a journal, but on their own webpage. Truth in Research is the name of these articles from Standing for Truth Ministries. So here we have a research article, right? Neanderthals and Separate Ancestry, a comprehensive creationist response. Definitely a title written by AI. Got the colon, and the sub portion of the title. No abstract here. Typically, you'd have an abstract in a research article. We go straight into the introduction. and I'm not here to read this article, not here to really critique it. We could go through all the, maybe sometime I'll do a little critique in creationism, and we'll talk about this particular article. But we got these page break lines. We have the indents. We've got some M dashes. This is just Chat GPT writing. I'm going to catch some flack for this. I am not 100% opposed to using AI as a writing assistant. The thing about this is this is just completely churned out of AI with it looks like almost no editing, and even used probably Sora to generate these figures. And I've looked at a couple papers, and the figures are very kind of nonsensical. They don't really tell you a whole lot. Oh, so by the way, what's the main point of the paper is, well, how do we explain Neanderthals? Well, Neanderthals have genetic sequences that are different than modern humans. Well, how did they become different? Well, after the flood, during the flood, there was great global volcanism, right? Tectonics, heat, radiation release. Have you heard of the heat problem? It's like, it's actually more of a problem than it is something you probably don't really want to admit is an issue with the flood. But after the flood, the immediate post-flood world, you notice repetition, immediate post-flood world, unstable crust, radiation-rich rocks, caves with chemical deposits. There's caves around today. Neanderthals then what? Their small human groups migrated into these regions and lived in these caves. The thing is, modern humans also lived in caves, and they don't have the same, in this case, accelerated mutation rates. All right, because that's what they're going to try to argue, is that Neanderthals are different than modern humans because they accumulated mutations at a faster pace because of these environments they lived in. But modern humans also lived across all the different locations that Neanderthals existed. We know they coexisted for quite a period of time. So just right there on the face of it, this argument just doesn't really work. All right, now we got, again, this is far more readable than any of their prior work. And I guess what gets to me is that it gives them the appearance of intelligence. So what this looks like is it actually looks like they're competent writers as a result, which will increase people's impression of what they're saying. Right? So we're living in an age now where anybody can have any thought and then put it into AI and have AI write out the thoughts in a coherent fashion that is written with the various forms of rhetoric that are more convincing than that person could actually be themselves. Now, of course, I think the challenge, in this case is, it's all written from a young Earth creationist perspective. So you have to prompt AI to basically say, I want you to write as if this is true, like argue from my perspective. And I don't know how much he had to sort of like wrangle with it. Like, it's like, hey, it's trying to buck this. It's like, okay, I'll make this argument, but often AI will say like, but that this isn't the conventional view, and here's what's potentially wrong with it. That's not included in the paper, of course. Again, I don't want to get into the nuts and bolts of this. I've read it, and it has a lot of issues. The issues aren't necessarily AI issues. AI has done the best. In some ways, AI has done the best it can to make the best possible argument it can for the young Earth creationist position. And what it's really done is it's not thought about this. It has taken a number of different sources that the author here has probably given it, probably in a folder or something like that, and said like, use these sources, which are different arguments, and here's my notes and other things we've collected and talked, because they have tons of PowerPoint slides that have these things on it, and just use those arguments and write out that stuff. I checked some of these references, and some of these links don't work. All right, so that's another classic problem with AI, is providing false, fake links. All right, it's not worth going on and on about these articles. I don't know who looks at them or reads them, but this is part of a symptom of a bigger problem. Donnie and others can use these technological crutches to prop themselves up and make them look more articulate, intelligent than they really are. And I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, their arguments still fall on their face because they don't make any sense, and the references don't really provide. They don't provide real evidence that's substantial that supports the things that they're trying to say. But they give the air, they give the appearance of sounding better to those who don't know otherwise, right? And you label it a research article. And AI just allows anybody to look this legitimate. And so it's sort of like everyone can look, right, the same. Just like everyone's going to be making videos using avatars, and they're having scripts written with AI. And so they're starting to sound kind of similar to one another. And somebody who may have before fumbled over everything, by the way, I'm fumbling over a lot of stuff right now, so you can tell I'm not reading a script. Okay, so I'm trying to keep it authentic that way, right? I shouldn't have said it that way. I am being authentic this way. I'm definitely not looking at a script. We're winging it here, if you couldn't tell. So it's like it's AI for the purpose of your own self-organization, collecting materials, providing suggestions. It's a tool. And I'm not going to be one that's going to be like, thou shalt not use AI for anything. Certainly not. I have uses for it in my own job. I have particular portions of my job in which AI is used in my workflow process. But when it comes down to me generating thoughts and ideas and reacting to things, that comes from my experience. That comes from me engaging with the material myself. And answers that, well, anyone who's doing creation stuff, really, this is going to make all those wannabe young earth creationists out there, all they have to do is pull together like a couple hundred articles written by young earth creationists, and put them all together in a notebook LM or something like that. And it can write them young earth creationist articles right and left and write scripts for them. And then they can just talk through almost any topic, which is just regurgitating all the points that other young earth creationists have made. But of course, that's what a lot of content sites are, right? That's what a lot of channels are. It's just regurgitation of the same stuff over and over and over again. Just like going to Answers in Genesis and Creation Ministries International, and especially ICR. That's why I complained about ICR. It's like, give me some new thoughts. Actually wrestle with something new, like struggle with some observation, not simply just reinventing the wheel over and over and over again. I am seeing Answers in Genesis definitely using AI as well. Some of their recent articles written by these like generalist articles that are retreads of previous articles, it's very clear they're using AI to just, repackage some of their old material so that they can keep putting out what looks like new material. All right. And AI is good at that. Right. Complain all you want about AI, really generating thoughtful analyses that go beyond just reiterating points that other people have made, just being a synthesis of the average of what you put into it. But if that's what you want, all right, if that's all your intent is to just be like, give me the generic talking points that we've used in 20 different articles, but just, say it in a little bit different way. I mean, AI can do that. And I could see why someone at Answers in Genesis doesn't need to spend the time to write that again when AI can just write that same content, because they're not trying to say anything new. In fact, it's dangerous to say anything new, right? We already knew the truth. We already knew the answer. We just want to say it a little bit a different way, right? And we don't want to drift off into error. We wouldn't want to speculate on anything. So just like, here, my prompt is like, use Answers in Genesis material to find all the material you're going to use to write this article, and check it against our statement of faith and all of the other data we have to make sure we're not saying anything we haven't said before. And just write me a basic article about that. You could churn that out, 5 or 6 articles a day that way on a variety of topics. In fact, I'm sure Answers in Genesis could. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of riffing on the topic, aren't I? But I'm sure that somebody at Answers in Genesis, they have all these response articles. That's what young earth creationists do. I mean, the only way they get really new content is because the only thing they can do is like, here's a new fossil that was found. We need to respond to it and put it into the context of a young earth creation, like the young earth creationist worldview. How do we understand this new discovery in astronomy or whatever? Not hard to just say like, hey, I'll upload the article, which isn't even going to be the original research. I'm just going to upload the Science Daily blurb about whatever the latest finding is, and then say like, hey, look at our website and respond to, and answer it in a way that we would answer it, using the AI chatbot. How would you respond to this new discovery? Oh, well, that Answers in Genesis, we believe, and we talk about your worldview and talk about how the earth is young and we need to reinterpret things. And it's all, it's all about your assumptions. And if you have the right assumptions, you'll be able to analyze this data. So what does this study say? Well, it says that it's millions of years old, but we know that that's based on a false assumption because you don't know, what the original decay rates were, right? It's all the same stuff. It's the same arguments. You make the same argument for every response. So why not? I mean, they could just set, the whole website on autopilot. AI could just generate everything for Answers in Genesis. All right, I'm giving them too many ideas. Giving them a lot of ideas in this particular video. Hey, thanks for hanging out. Again, my name's Joel Duff. Appreciate your time. Yeah, we'll see you next time.